This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is Laura Davis. I am here to talk to you a little bit about employee happiness today. And I'll have to say, I was a little bit leery of naming this webinar anything about employee happiness because as employers, do we really feel like it's our job to make people happy? I mean, it's our job to give them a paycheck and it's our job to give them a safe place to work, but do we also have to make them happy? And I must admit, I am a Gen X person. And if you've ever worked for a Gen X person, your parents are a Gen X person, or maybe you yourself are a Gen X person, you know that particularly our generation thinks that you go to work, you do your job, and you go home, and that's where you find happiness. But the fact is that's not going to cut it. It really didn't cut it years ago, and especially it doesn't cut it right now. There was just a recent study done that says that employee engagement is at an all-time low since 2019. So if you think about that, that means that people were happier with their work at the peak of the COVID pandemic than they are today. And let's face it, lots of things in our environment have changed, maybe triggered by COVID, maybe or some of these things are just the natural progression of culture. But right now we're dealing with inflation, we're hearing about layoffs. There is an election coming up, which causes all kinds of discourse amongst people always. And the fact is that people are having trouble being happier everywhere, not just at work. And if you think for a minute that unhappy people make engaged, productive employees, I'm afraid you might be kidding yourself. After this presentation, for all of you who are in attendance, I'll send out this slideshow. And in that notes, I want you to look at the references. I have found at least 24 studies conducted within the last 4 years that show that happiness contributes to enhanced cognitive functioning. That means people are getting more creative the happier they are, problem solving, decision making abilities, their productivity, their commitment. I won't read the whole slide to you, but if you're a manager and you're trying to convince your business owner that maybe we need to invest a little time, money, and effort into our employees' happiness, take them this list that's showing on your screen right now and ask them how much better off would our company be if we could improve in all of these areas. So happiness isn't just a woo-woo zen HR thing that we talk about in our euphoric workplaces that we're looking to create. Happiness has a real business case. It will impact the business's bottom lines. So where I want to go today is talk about how can we achieve happiness? And I hope that I'm able to give you some novel ideas that maybe you're not reading everywhere else. So to formulate this path to happiness, what I've done is I've gone back to an ages old formula for happiness. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it includes 5 levels of human needs with self-actualization sitting right at the top of that. Now, self-actualization, Maslow and many psychiatrists have said over the years, it's really rare for a person to actually achieve full self-actualization, but that's what we're working for. When you achieve that, or maybe you even just achieve it in a small area of your life, maybe not every single area of your life, but at that point, you are at your full capacity for creativity, intellectual functioning, and social potential. And naturally, the fulfillment where humans peak at happiness is actually going to be beneficial for employers for all the reasons I just went over on the previous slide. So, starting down at the bottom, physiological needs. Those are your basic needs. We're going to talk about what's the employer's role in that. And then I'll move up through the levels and talk about how you can contribute. Whether you're a manager attending today or a business owner, I think that you'll find these tips very interesting and things that could definitely be implemented very well in your organization. So, the path to happiness that I'm going to take you down today, number one, we're going to contribute to the fulfillment of basic needs. Did I say that you're going to fulfill all of those needs? No, but you can contribute to it. We're going to foster a psychological safety atmosphere and culture. And then we're going to cultivate some connections. And then we're going to go beyond the traditional recognition programs. So, first and foremost, um, physiological needs. People need air, food, water, shelter, clothing, warmth, and health. What do they say? If you don't have your health, you don't have anything at all. Think about the time lost at work due to injuries, due to disease, due to sickness, whether that is the employee themselves or a member of their family that they're responsible for caring for. So, as an employer, the way that you can contribute is adequate pay. I would suggest that you look out on the market. There are free sites available. I'd love to help you with a comp study. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Go to Indeed, look at similar jobs that are being posted. Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and look at the nationwide data on salaries. Be sure to take into consideration, where you're located. I know that we have some people joining us here from California today, and those people are going to have a higher cost of living that will cause the salaries to need to be higher. So if it gets too complicated, give me a ring, I'll help you, but I'm telling you that you can do a preliminary research all on your own. We need health benefits. That one gets a little bit tougher. Those are expensive, and the access to healthcare is limited by a number of things. I formerly worked for a company where we had a large Hispanic population, and this was back around 2000, 2002. And one of the things that we were missing as an employer were communications that were available in Spanish. Now, certainly the HR world and the world in general has come a longer way in providing that information in Spanish, but we're still very limited. And there are people who are coming here from different countries, not just Mexico, but from all over the world. We are a melting pot, and their insurance works different in different countries. So, as I experienced at my previous employer, we had employees that we paid for 100% of their employee-only health plan that was a very robust package of coverage, and they still went to the free clinic because they didn't understand how to use the insurance, because that was not the program that they were accustomed to having. Another roadblock that got in the way, even though we paid the full premium, they still had to come up with co-pays and deductibles and co-insurance. And that money may not be available depending upon the family's income. And so we need to take those things into consideration. Yeah, it's great to provide your employees with major medical insurance, but there's other stuff that you can do. And I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Wellness and financial education. What I mean by that is, how do you use what you have? So lots of carriers have programs to address things like chronic disease, things like diabetes, maybe if someone has been diagnosed with cancer. It goes beyond insurance that you as an employer are paying for. So your brokers who sell you your employee benefit plans, and then on the retirement 401k side, you also have a financial advisor as part of your plan. Those people are experts in their business, and they will talk to your employees for free, and they will help them get the most out of their benefits. And that is really cool to employees, because First of all, those benefits that you are paying out the wazoo for are meaningless if they're not using them. They're less meaningful if they're not using them to their full capacity. And when people get one-on-one attention like they can from your brokers and your financial advisors, they feel like somebody cares about them. And even though you're a manager, you're busy doing your job, or you're a business owner and you're trying to help a business to survive, you don't have time to educate them on all of those things. That's why you hire experts. And those things are super important and meaningful to your employees. So get them connected with those resources. And lastly, be sure to consider a safe work environment. Safe work environment means a number of things. You've got your OSHA rules that make sure a person isn't going to be physically injured, but we also need to think about psychological safety. So I'm going to delve into that a little bit later on a deeper note. Also, I want you to notice at the bottom of my PowerPoint screen, you are going to see in the black border all throughout this presentation some different facts and information. If you are a manager and you need to go advocate for putting some of these plans in place with management, and you need to get the money in the budget, or you need to get acceptance and buy-in from higher level people, what you're going to see down there is information that will kind of help coach you through those conversations. And don't forget, I always offer a free 1-hour consultation. I don't care if you never hire us for anything, but if you're a manager trying to be a proponent for employee engagement and happiness plans, give me a call and I will coach you through that conversation to go to your business owners and show them that it is absolutely worth their investment. So moving on, one of the things that I mentioned was that some people can't afford their health care even when they have a very nice major medical plan. And there are other plans out there. And yes, I offer this one, but you know what? Call up your broker. They probably have a similar plan. But what this is an added layer of care that you can put on top of your major medical. It does not replace your major medical. But what this does is if you're not able to give a plan to your employees that the employer pays for 100%, or sometimes even the employee can't afford to have any money deducted, so they decline health care. This is a little piece of care that you can put in place for every single employee, and it is completely free to you and to the employee. If you know anything about payroll, we have tax incentives, or you might say tax savings plans that are called Section 125 plans. And the way this plan is administered, it allows it to be free for the employee and the employer. I was actually really skeptical about this whenever I learned about it. So I put it in place with my team at Ignite HR, and we've now had it for a year, and people love it. Someone emailed me just the other day, told me that her daughter, I believe it was at night or on the weekend when the dentist was closed, had a severe toothache, and they were able to call this service, get a prescription that held her over until she could get in to see the dentist. So even the people that can afford it and do understand insurance, they need these little extra benefits that are super helpful to them. So this particular plan offers, get this, completely free, unlimited visits to your primary care doctor or an urgent care center for your employees. That means they actually get to go in and see a doctor. It's not just telehealth. Let's say they're hurt and they need to go in, this will pay for that urgent care visit. And they can go as many times as they need to. We have a pretty good list of prescription drugs. I'll tell you that these are pretty basic. These are going to be your common antibiotics, steroids, allergy medicines and things like that, that are usually the lowest tier on your prescription drug plan if you have major medical. But this takes it a little bit further, and there's $0 or $1 copays. You do get to offer your employees for both their employee and their family, so their children and their spouse, free, unlimited virtual direct primary care. So that's what a lot of people call like teledoc. That's what that is. They get free, unlimited virtual mental health care visits, which going back to happiness, that's really super important to some people to address those needs. And they didn't even leave out the pets. My little dog just recently on a weekend sliced her paw open, and I called, and they called me in a prescription for a salve to put on her paw until we could go into the vet on Monday during regular business hours when it wasn't an emergency call. And so that kind of bridged the gap, and I was able to make sure that her paw didn't get infected. So I liked that personally. And then lastly, 100% preventative care paid for your employee. Now, all your major medical plans are going to offer this as well because it's required by the Affordable Care Act. So, but this can still be important for your employees that waive coverage because they can't afford your major plan. So just something to take into consideration. And I get it. I know everybody's wondering, okay, nothing's free. What's the catch? So the way it works is that employees get a text message once a month that gives them a little health activity to complete. It takes 10 or 15 minutes. This is like a health assessment, or it might be a webinar to watch about how to quit smoking or lose weight or something that will positively impact their health. So they get one of those each month that they must complete. And then the cost of the health plan is actually deducted from the employee's pay, but it is done so on a pre-tax basis. So yes, they are going to see a transaction on their check, but because it is on a pre-tax basis, it will lower their taxable income. Thereby, it does not cost them a single penny. And I actually ran a couple of test payrolls personally, and each one of my employees, as a result of this plan, is taking home $25 to $50 per month extra because of the plan. So it's not just free for them. They can actually make a little bit of money or take home a little bit of extra money. And with the cost of groceries these days, $50 goes a long way to putting food on the table. So every little bit counts. On the employer side, whenever you reduce the employee's taxable income for them, you also lower it for the Social Security and Medicare taxes that we as employers pay. So that also goes to helping care for the plan or pay for the plan. And I did an analysis on mine for the year just to make sure what I was telling you is true. And I did, in fact, pay less Social Security and Medicare taxes for my employees' payroll as a result of the plan. I can attest to that. The last thing that it does that's really cool is it some of these things that are included on your major medical plan, what that does is that reduces the number of claims that hit your plan. And when it comes renewal time for those major medical plans, that matters because that's how your renewal rates for next year are determined. So if you're interested in learning more about that, email me. Like I said, your broker probably has a similar plan, so email your broker and ask them how you can get information on that. And the bottom line is, the fact is that until these basic needs are met, people cannot even begin to focus on moving up to the next level, which is safety. So we are going to talk a little bit about what is psychological safety. And the definition of it is that is managing fear and providing a feeling of inclusion and safety to learn, contribute, and take risks, all without the fear of being embarrassed or punished. So we as employers, I would say one of the things that people are nervous about right now is what's going to happen to my job. Every single business owner that I talk to is dealing with rising costs and lower revenues and uncertainty about the future. And now we've even got new legislation coming down in the HR world that is going to cost employers more money. And so talk to people about that. Share news about how is the company doing? Where are we going? What challenges are we facing? maybe how are we addressing those challenges, and what factors are affecting our business. I think that's very important for employees to realize. Things like the upcoming election. I would talk to them about um, the candidates' platforms and what everyone is talking about. Now, I want to caution you not to shove political propaganda down your employee's throat. Don't use it for that platform, because odds are that you have people that have a different point of view working for you. So, unless you want to violate every single one of those people by dismissing their opinions, I would steer clear of that sort of activities. But what you can do is talk about what are the issues that affect our business and what are the outcomes that have a positive impact for us as a company, and educate them. That's all you can do, and let them know how it might affect your business, which ultimately affects them. Another thing that I would be, losing my HR card if I didn't mention, but we absolutely have to get on board with doing something to prevent discrimination, harassment, and bias in the workplace. Those are the things that make people feel like outsiders. And why on earth would an outsider have a vested interest in the success of your business or in the success of their coworkers? They won't. So again, even if you don't believe as a human being that that is something that we should provide for our employees, think about the business reason behind it. And I think you'll find that there is a good reason to make sure that we have a very diverse workplace. Make sure that your policies and procedures are clear. Whenever people start feeling like rules are being applied differently or they are being treated unfairly, that's when people start losing faith and trust in you, whether that is you as a manager, and all you can affect is the policies and procedures within your department. You might not be able to affect the company as a whole, but you can control what happens in your area. So yes, even you as managers should sit down and think about what are the policies and procedures in my department. Make sure that those align with the company, not just their policies, but also their vision and their goals. And you as a manager can go a long way in supporting both your team and your company. Make sure those performance and behavior expectations are clear. I believe I've mentioned that on every single webinar thus far, so I won't go a lot deeper into that. But again, you better be really super clear on what good looks like to you so that you can communicate it to your teams. And then lastly, clear consequences. I have been working with a friend of mine right now, just very recently. She was unfortunately put on a performance improvement plan at work. She's in her 40s. Never in her career before has she ever received any feedback that was of a negative nature to this level where she felt like her job was in danger. And quite frankly, her feelings were really hurt over this performance improvement plan. And I, had a really frank conversation with her about, would you rather know what the expectations are and what could possibly happen? Or would you rather them just sit back and not communicate with you and walk in your office one day and fire you without any warning at all? And I think we finally come around to an understanding and move the focus off of the hurt feelings and on to what can be done to improve her performance. So don't make friends with us HR people, because that's what we're going to want to do. We're going to want to counsel you in all areas of your work life. So, but again, I'm here for you. If you want to have a consultation, if you have somebody in that situation, give me a ring and I'll be happy to talk with you about it. But the bottom line is that the psychologically safe workplace has been proven to be 2 to 6 times higher in retention rates in every single diversity category. That means regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, international status, no matter what, every single person values a psychologically safe workplace. So with that said, I want to give you a quick tool for building your culture. We have 2 programs that are now available. One is called Engage, and I know many of you joining us today are coming from small businesses. You don't have an HR team to be with you on site all the time running employee engagement programs. So what Engage does for $250 a month, it sends you quick reminders, information that you can send on to your employees to acknowledge important things like events, holidays, cultural education, and a number of other factors such as that really help employees to build an awareness of others and diversity in their workplace, as well as help people to feel recognized. And it does some really cool things. They have monthly webinars that are on all sorts of topics that would be interesting to everyone. And it ranges from like stress management to customer service, to continuing education and how to get funding to go back to college. They've done all sorts of really cool topics, and every single one of your employees would benefit from these webinars. They do fun activities that are like challenges. They did Wordle one time. They do contests where employees can win stuff. They do virtual fish bowls, which I had never even heard of before, but that's like when several people from different companies get on the line and they discuss a topic. And so you get to see how other companies are addressing challenges that they may be facing. And then last of all employers get recordings of all the sessions and a badge to share on your website and your recruiting advertisements that shows that you made an investment in your employee engagement and furthering your culture. Engage Plus takes that one step further. For $500 a month, you actually get 3 workshops that are custom for your employees. The presenter is presenting directly to your team and nobody else. And they've got like 7 expert facilitators that you can choose from. So you can choose different topics that would be appropriate for your crowd. They give you an annual calendar, and then most importantly, I think they do an engagement survey so that you can see exactly where you're doing great and where you may be falling short, so that all these different tips that I'm giving you, you can focus on the ones that will be most meaningful and have the greatest impact for your team. So moving on, speaking of teams, one of the most important things, have you ever read the book called Good to Great? That book has probably shaped the careers and philosophy of more human resources professionals and and organizational behavior specialists in the last 20 years than any single book has done. And it's all based on polls that are conducted by Gallup that show what factors are most important to employees to increase profitability, lower accident rates, even lower inventory loss rates, and having higher retention numbers. So Gallup has found that having a best friend of work is strongly linked to all these positive outcomes. And I would say that personally, probably the best friends that I have in life came from work. There are people that I worked for 30 years ago, and they are still my friend today. And what that does is that just makes it more enjoyable to come to work when there's people that you like there, people that you care about, people that you know care about you, and people that you connect with. And what that does on the business side is that when we are working with people that we care about, we don't want to let them down. So we work harder, and that's where you get things like increased profitability and production. And so that is your, mantra to your business owners is it's all worth it. I know these programs sound woo-woo, like some HR person fed this information to you, because that's what we like to do, is put a little candy on our desk and think everything's going to be okay. But there really is a business impact. So I would encourage you to train every single employee in your company about how to communicate effectively, how to give feedback, how to respond to feedback. So often I am training managers. I bet that almost everybody on this call is a manager. But you know what? You can invite your employees too. And yeah, there's some things in here that probably don't apply to them. But earlier this year, I talked about how to be assertive in communication, how to be confident in communication. That's important to everyone. And there are a million online courses out there that are geared directly to employees, and they would really benefit from some communication education while they're working on building those friendships at work, because sometimes things get stressful. It's a lot more stressful at work than it probably is, at their bunco game or at their church gathering on Sunday. We come across a lot more conflict here, so we need to know how to handle it. But let's create some opportunities for them to get together that's not just work related. Volunteerism is a really cool thing to do. One of my clients, they every year their company sponsors a 5K run, and then they have all their employees come out and walk or run together. Those that don't want to walk or run, they are volunteering at the water stand, and it's a team effort, and they're all wearing a shirt that has their company logo on it, and it just binds them together. So heck, you're getting even some free marketing out of that deal, but at the same time, your employees are developing connections. You can also do sports, games, group activities. I don't know if it's a thing anymore to have company softball teams, but it seems like that used to be a really popular thing and people really bonded over it. But you could sponsor a checker tournament. Doesn't pretty much everyone know how to play checkers? And it's a reason to get together, to laugh, to have some fun, and maybe the company sponsors the snacks for it or something like that. It's a pretty cheap employee engagement event. Group activities, I would say consider doing maybe like a little survey about what people in your company like to do outside work. What are their interests? What are their hobbies, their backgrounds? And form little employee groups where they can get together. Heck, maybe you have 2 or 3 people that are into crocheting or skydiving or whatever the case may be, and form a little group. And that will most likely bring people from departments that could possibly never even really work together. It could bring them together because of a common interest. And those connections are still very important to your employee engagement. On the work side, consider creating some projects that require teamwork and collaboration. Not every project has to be for our end goal of generating revenue. Many years ago, one of the companies I worked at, we had a social committee, and there was at least one person from each department that got together, and we had a committee meeting, I think once a month for an hour, and we planned employee events. And that allowed me to connect with people in departments that I wouldn't normally work with. They came in knowing what their group wanted because they had been talking to, their colleagues in their department. And then we had ultimately the group get-togethers. We even did a chili cook-off one time. It was super fun. And I think all the company bought for that was the paper bowls and plastic forks and maybe supplied the drinks. And it was super fun. Speaking of getting together, I would suggest looking at your break rooms and your lunch rooms. Make sure that those are places that are attractive for people to come together. I say, if you've got a TV on in that area, I would consider turning that TV off, because people coming in there and they might zone out watching the afternoon news, and heck, that probably won't even put them in a very good mood for the rest of the day, right? Um, but you can do things like put conversation cards on the table, change those out every once in a while, and maybe they'll pick those up and they'll start answering those questions. Like, there's actually games that you can buy on Amazon that have conversation cards, and they give you all sorts of ideas of what you might put on those things. Mentorship programs are also very good. This doesn't have to be just younger workers and older workers. This could be someone in one department who is interested in exploring a career in a different area within the company. Talk to people about that sort of thing. Include that in your employee surveys and find out about those things that people are thinking about. And it's very easy to set up a mentorship program that's very rewarding as not only the person that is receiving the benefit of the mentorship program, but also the mentor themselves, because they feel like they're able to give back and contribute in a different way. And let's see, moving on. Let's talk about recognition. Now, if you're a manager and you haven't ever been to an employee recognition webinar, or you're not on a newsletter or something like that, I mean, what are you even doing? So it was honestly really kind of hard for me to think outside the box and tell you something new and different. But when I put some thought into it, I was like, really, we're getting pretty good at recognition in the workplace. I know most of my clients, some have some form of formal plan in place for recognition. So I thought, how can we make that more meaningful, more rewarding, and more valuable to the employee who's being recognized? So I think what we need to do with the recognition programs that we have in place, and if you don't have anything, that's okay. That's really relatively easy to put in place. But while you're doing that, let's think about not just about what the person accomplished, but really the who and the why behind it, so that we can identify and recognize the value of that achievement. So when you're talking about a 10-year celebration, I'm going to give you some examples. I would say, let's not just say, happy anniversary. Yay, glad you've worked here for 3 years. Congratulations on continuing to show up every day. I would maybe go to that person and talk to them about, like, okay, you've worked here for 5 years now. What has been the most important accomplishment to you in your time here? What do you love about working here? What keeps you coming back every day? Talk to those people about not just why the time they've put in is important, but the things that they've been able to do while they're with you. What's important? And then you as an employer, or, if you're an HR person listening to this, go talk to your managers and find out, what does this person really bring to the table? Like, somebody might say about an HR person, oh, she can process payroll with the best of them, and she can do a write-up with like nobody's business. But really, what do they bring to the table beyond just productivity or revenue? And, that could be their happy disposition, that could be their talent for teaching others, or they're extremely selfless in going above and beyond when other people are being challenged. And then maybe whenever you announce to the company in that little paragraph about them, talk about what they said was important to them, what they have accomplished, and then how others view them, why they are important. And I think that happy anniversary can go from just a momentary feeling of, oh, wow, that was nice, they remembered, to, hey, I'm important here. And it matters if I come back tomorrow. So that's what we're really looking for, is helping people to understand on a deeper level what they contribute to our organizations. If you're talking about performance celebrations, those are a number of different things. That could be your salesperson of the month. That could be maybe somebody was specifically mentioned in a Google review as providing great customer service. There are a number of different things that we recognize publicly on a performance level. When you do that, don't just include, yeah, this person sold the most this month, because yeah, that's inspiring to your other salespeople. They're naturally competitive usually, and they want to reach for the gold. But spread the wealth with the value of that. What was the impact to those customers or coworkers, their community, or even, the company? Talk about why closing that big sale mattered. You could say something like, when John brought this very prestigious client to us, not only did that contribute to the company's bottom line, but what that does is that gives us notoriety and it validates us in our business community and allows us to reach for more. So that's important to the company. You might talk about, a number of you are joining me today from medical practices. Talk about the impact that that person's kind, caring disposition has on your patients. Talk about why their performance is important. And this can even spread out to birthday and other life celebrations. I think most of my clients send out an email and wish people a happy birthday, or it's included in their newsletter or something like that. Or they announced that so and so had a baby, or maybe got married, or whatever those life celebrations are. But again, talk about the person behind this and why they are important to us and why we want to wish them a happy birthday, whatever that is. A couple of examples that I gave you here is that you could say something like, Bob is so kind and uplifting, and his team is grateful to have him. Or maybe you have an employee who recently trained for a 5K. It was her first run ever. And the reason that she did this was because she really believes in supporting an organization that sends kids to camp. Tout her for her accomplishments, share that with everyone. And things like this, you might want to be sure to talk to your employees and make sure it's okay. But if Jane's been coming into the office every day for the last 3 months talking about how she ran another mile or how the blisters on her feet were killing her, more than likely she's going to be okay with you sending a little celebratory email out to congratulate her on completing that 5K. So yeah, we have to think about this from an HR standpoint as well. I'm not telling you to just willy-nilly go out there and start sharing everybody's business. Apply a little bit of common sense. Talk to the people if you're ever in question, but celebrate, 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 and go beyond just the what they did, but talk about who they are and why that's important. And PricewaterhouseCoopers, an extremely prestigious organization, their surveys have found that when employees find their work meaningful, inspiring, enjoyable, they are twice as likely to be engaged and stay at their organization. So I think it's a no-brainer that these things have to be implemented. And whenever you invest in them, they are going to be a big benefit to everyone involved. So I was almost done, and then I thought about one more thing that I couldn't go without saying. So your bonus tip for the day is, I'm going to say, care for those people like your business depends on them, because it does. If you're a manager joining me today, I get it. You're not the business owner, but those teams that support you, everything that they do reflects on you, and everything that you can invest in helping them stay engaged and happy and productive is going to reflect positively on you. It's going to benefit the bottom line of the company, which means as the company keeps making money, you keep getting a paycheck. So spend some time, get to know them, understand what is important to them, be above and beyond. What are your career aspirations, and where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, what's your why? beyond just a paycheck? What challenges outside work are you facing? What brings you joy, or maybe what gets in the way of you feeling joyful? What are you really trying to accomplish personally? It could be 5K, it could be getting out of debt, it could be raising happy, healthy children. Help them in ways that employers aren't typically expected. The reason that you're in the position that you're in today is because you have experience, not just at managing, not just at whatever your primary role is, but also as a professional and an adult. And talk to them about things that has worked for you, hasn't worked for you. Introduce them to people or resources that they may not know exist or might not be able to reach, because you probably have more connections than them if you're farther along in your career. And check in on them. When you can't do anything else, asking them how they're doing and listening goes a long, long way. Sometimes there's nothing that we have to offer. We have no more money. We have no more advice. There's nothing else that we can do, but we can listen and we can be there for them. And be sure to connect with them. All these great tips, you should also be participating in those employee groups where you share a common interest with your teammates. You should go out there, and if you don't want to run the 5K, be the person on the sideline handing out water, but be there, show your face, be a part of your team, and allow them to know the real you. You know, all those questions that you ask them, it doesn't have to be like a formal announcement about what's important to you or what challenges you're facing outside of work. But if you engage in casual, non-work related conversation, allow these things to come out about you, because they're super important. And to allow people to understand and know you better. So, closing with one more little factoid. Gallup also found that employees who feel genuinely cared for by their employers are 69% less likely to search for a new job, 71% less likely to report being burned out. They are 5 times more likely to advocate for their company. They are 3 times more likely to be engaged in work, and they are 36% more likely to thrive in their overall life, inside and outside your workplace. So I hope that I've convinced you. I'm going to give you just a few more free and easy action items that you can do. Number one, I mentioned it before, but don't forget, whenever we hang up here, drop an email to your insurance broker and your 401k financial advisor and ask them what kind of employee education, wellness events, meetings they offer, and make sure you advertise that information out to your employees. Don't blast it out all at once. Give it to them in small doses. Maybe post a little tip once a week like, hey, did you know you can get free financial advice because you're an employee of XYZ company? Here's our financial advisor's contact information. And then the next week, put out a webinar about stress management or whatever the case may be. Drip those things out in little doses so that they can absorb them, and be sure to take advantage of each one. Consider starting a monthly company newsletter. In there, you can share news about the business. Remember back to when I was talking about what affects the business, what challenges we're facing, and what we're doing to overcome those. You can include your celebrations. Don't forget to not just say what they're celebrating, but who they are and why it's important, or why they are important. Talk about upcoming events, group activities that I know you're going to run right out and plan, and other resources for employees. Like, that doesn't even have to be a resource for your company in particular. Maybe put a link on there for a website that helps you identify elder care, because we have more people in the workforce today than ever before who are caring for elderly parents. Run a survey of your employees. If you have any of the major payroll outsource companies like Paylocity, Paycor, Paycom, ADP, Exponent HR, Every single one of them has a tool in there where you can run a survey of your employees for free. You can set it up yourself. It's super easy. And this is where you ask about their hobbies, their interests, what charitable organizations they support. When you get that feedback, create those employee groups, give them opportunities for volunteerism. You know, the one company that I mentioned that runs the 5K, the reason that they chose that in particular is because they are an orthopedic surgery practice. And so, yeah, running plays right into that because they are sports medicine's doctors. So that's why they chose that particular activity. Perhaps if you are part of, let's say, I have one client that I believe is on here today. So here's a free piece of advice to you. And what they do is they sell home improvement products. So maybe you get involved in Habitat for Humanity and have a volunteer day with all your employees. You can either tie it to what's important to your employees as an individual and or to your organization. So think about that when you're talking about volunteer opportunities. And the simplest, cheapest, healthy piece of advice that I've got for you is to form a lunchtime walking group. The benefits of walking are astronomical. Getting outside, it's a beautiful day out today. Maybe you get 2 or 3 people that go walking together and they get to know each other on a little bit more personal level. And I would say you should be sure and participate too, because you as managers need to take care of yourself as well. And with that, I will bid you goodbye for the day. I did see that I had one question real quick in the chat, and you asked what the name of the book was that I referred to, and it's called Good to Great. And it is a really interesting read that will give you, I think it's like 12 questions to ask your employees, and whether or not they respond positively to those questions is a big determining factor on profitability, productivity, et cetera. And seeing where you stand on those particular questions, even if you don't hire a consultant such as myself or the consultants that are, there's a million of us on the internet, it will give you good guidance as to where to put your employee engagement efforts and dollars. So with that, I will say goodbye. Watch your email for the announcement of the next webinar. And again, I am going to send out the PDF copy of the slides today. And be sure to check the notes on that, because I will cite, I believe it's 24 studies I found that shows what we talked about today is super, super important. So have a great rest of your day and talk to you all soon. Bye.